On. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Robin. Stephen, Simone. Yeah. Welcome to Traffic Speed Limit and Road Closures Hearing Panel Committee meeting for 15th of August 2024. Thank you to my colleagues for coming in, and thanks to Councillor Anna Casey-Cox for joining us online. She's, I'm not sure if you caught up with my Facebook post, but she's a very proud mum who's going to watch her daughter compete in the World Championships of Rowing under 19s in St Catharines in Canada this coming week. So,
Thank you, Mark.
That's all right. Be proud, Anna. It's an awesome achievement for your daughter and her rowing partner, Izzy, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tomorrow, I think she leaves. Yeah. But yeah, awesome. Now, a couple of things today. I'm going to open the meeting by speaking in Japanese, so just bear with me for a second. So, irashaimase, minasama ohayou gozaimasu. Kyou wa totemo tanoshii shimashou. Goyukuri dozo. Now, what that means is I'm welcoming you all into the chamber, and I would like to have a very joyful meeting today, okay? So, and then the last part is let's do this all together. The reason for my nod to the Japanese is that on the 15th of August 1945, we celebrated VJ Day. So that was the end of the Second World War, after the announcement, following the horrible atrocities of the detonation of the atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Having been to Hiroshima, if you ever get a chance to go there, I would highly recommend it's worth a visit. And we won't finish on a somber note. Let's finish on let's open the meeting on a more positive note. And I don't know about you guys, but I've really enjoyed the Olympics over the last couple of weeks. It's been fantastic. It's been a bit of a gap in the morning now, waking up going, oh, what happened? You know, there's nothing to check. But one of the sports that really stood out for me was the... well, I was going to say beach volleyball, but that would have been naughty. No, I would say rock climbing or wall climbing or bouldering, whatever they call it. That speed climbing, they're like, is that just not the craziest sport you've ever seen? It was just fantastic. So anyway, if the Olympics held committee meetings, I'm sure that we'd traffic control would get in there in some way, shape or form. Okay. All right, thank you for indulging me, team, and welcome to everyone in the chamber as well. Now, we've got apologies today. We've got Deputy Mayor O'Leary, who is absent, and Councillor Moko will also be absent today. I did note that Councillor Wilson was noted as lateness, but he seems to be here, so we'll take him as here. So with that in mind, I'll move, and Councillor Wilson to second. All those in favour say aye. Ayes have it. Oh, do you want to say that, Amy? No. Okay. Confirmation of the agenda. Now, just need to note there was a late item, number 6, traffic bylaw amendment for heavy vehicle access on Waterford Road. I'm happy to move. Councillor Louise, would you like to second? Yep. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Item 3, declarations of interest. No vote required. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Item number 4, we'll confirm the... thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wilson moved. Councillor Maxine to second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Pardon? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so item number 5 is our parking restriction and traffic bylaw changes, which is going to be presented by Robin, but I believe we've got Mr. Mystery in the chamber, so bring him. He's welcome to come forward now. So if you just come up to the, yep, and you'll see your lights on. That means your microphone's live and you're good to go. So how much time does he have to speak? Oh, okay, all right. Just take your time and go forth.
Cool. No, thank you for the opportunity to come and present here. I'm just representing like the Rifle Range Dairy and the residents on Rifle Range Road. We've had I've been talking to customers who come to the shop and discussing with them, a lot of them have issues parking. And they also mention other things they find it hard to pull out into the traffic because of the separators. So basically I've just made some points here that I just wanted to discuss. So with our shop, with deliveries and things, when we have trucks, they find it really hard to unload because some trucks open both sides on the footpath and on the roadside. So the ones that open on the roadside, they find it really hard to get the goods out. And I had a Coca-Cola truck yesterday that moved the goods out of the truck container and put it into the cycle lane. And then they have to put it back onto the footpath and onto the trolley. So they're finding it really difficult. And also when the trucks are there, they take up, trucks are mostly there for 15, 20 minutes. And they take up both the customer parks. We used to have 7 parking spaces. Now we are limited to 2 parking spaces at the moment. The rest of the parking is used by residents. I know that there's a time limit that's going to be put in place, but there's nothing there at the moment. Also, there was a game in the weekend on Sobrick Park, and we had, there was someone who actually parked their car into our customer car park, and they parked in the center, so customers were complaining they couldn't park. So we're having issues with that. So a lot of customers have pointed out that they find it really hard to open the door in the traffic. And then from our side, with business, we do have customers who have mobility issues. There's no mobility parks or there's no parking space across the road for customers as well. So we've lost all our westbound customers. And also, so some points here from the petition that I had started. Basically, people have pointed out there's impatient drivers try to overtake the waste collection trucks as well. I've noticed there's when there's wider trailers on the road, cars towing trailers, the trailers do cross over the median sometimes, and people try to avoid, and they hit concrete separators. It's happened to few cars. You'll see if you drive on Rifle Range Road, you'll see all the tire marks on the separators. Also, the cars are getting sideswiped. I've experienced that as well with my car, and my understanding was there was a camera somewhere on the road which was focusing towards the side where I parked. I requested for a footage as well, but I was told that the camera had been taken down for, I think it was to do with backing up or something like that. And people have pointed out that when they turn out of Aberdeen Drive into Rifle Range Road, they find it really hard to turn without impending traffic flow. And the other thing is with us, with the shop, the concrete separators outside. I had a look at it. It looks like it's quite wide. If it was a slightly narrower separator, then that means cars could pull further in towards the footpath. And then customers would find it really easy to get in and out of the cars. And also with the shop, you'll see, if you look at other parking spaces on Rifle Range Road, it's mostly for residents. People come in, out. Maybe they won't be in and out every 5 minutes or so. With the shop, you experience that customers come, they want to be in and out of the shop ASAP. So what happens is a lot of them carry goods with them as well. So when they get into the car, they open the door up, fully open it, and they see the cars coming. They're too scared to come out or get into the cars. So that's mostly the things that I wanted to point out, really.
Thank you. Is it okay if I call you Ronak? Yep, thank you, Ronak. Now, do we have any questions from the floor? Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Ronick. So you're the dairy owner?
Yes.
Thank you. Your dairy, at the back of the land, there is some land that there is actually a consent for a car park.
Yes, I've
Why, as the dairy owner, haven't you put your own park in an area that was designated?
I'm just leasing the place, so I've had a chat with the landlord about that as well. He's actually pointed out that's not feasible, and also like it's because we've got people living at the back of the property, so that's actually a house at the back, and so basically it's mostly parking for the
Right.
So it's actually family that's living at the back. So
Right.
yeah.
But that's a commercial arrangement, obviously, for the landlord.
It's my
When you leased your dairy, did that not come with that land with the resource consent? Because it's designated as a car park.
Yeah. That's something has to be raised with my landlord. Really, like I've had a chat with him. So
since this is your business, is that not something you should be managing?
not sure actually when it comes to that part of the consent.
Right. So the purpose of the question is you've been relying on car parks that the ratepayers pay for. Your building has a designation at the back, which is a car park.
Right.
Are you saying that in your lease, that area is in your lease, or is it in...
It's in my lease, yeah.
Right, so it is in your lease.
Yeah. And can I just clarify something too? I believe that's 4 car parks in your lease, in the consented for?
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that until like someone from the council had a look and then they mentioned about it. So that's, I've had a chat with the landlord. I can talk to him again, and we can actually go from there.
Well, I'm assuming you'll get your own advice. I mean, if you've leased it and it includes that area,
Yes.
Surely that's your right of access, but you need to pursue that in your own right.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was the only question. I just wanted to
that's all right.
understand
Yeah.
why you weren't using your own car parks at the back.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Councillor Wilson. No further questions? No? You can... Thank you, Councillor Louise. Ronak, you mentioned the sports fields close by. What frequency, this is probably a difficult question to answer, but is it, I'd imagine rugby season, it's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday?
Yeah, it's on and off. So
Yeah,
like last week it was on Saturday.
yeah. I believe there was a big tournament there on the Sunday as well.
Sunday, I think, it was
Yeah.
Sunday, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and there was lots of cars.
Yeah,
all over the place, yeah. So.
And did you say someone parked in front of the dairy for a
Yes.
longer period of time than what they
Yes,
were
someone
allowed?
went to the game, left the car in our car park,
Yeah.
and I did report that to the council as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
Did you
raised
do
it.
that through the Anteno app, or did you go through?
No, I called the number. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I was told that there was no parking wardens or anything could be done
Oh,
here
okay.
on that day. So, yeah.
Okay. Look, I don't think there's no further questions. I'm fairly satisfied with my line. Thank you for taking the time to come in today. I understand it's a pretty tough situation to be in, but we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to come and speak to us. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Robin, would you like to come forward? Thanks.
So good morning, committee members. I'm going to take the report as read, and then I'll work through the various items that we've got throughout the document. But with your leave, I think we'll start with the Rifle Range Road, Aberfield Street, so that we can work through that while our customers here. So that one for elected members is clause 39 on page 26 of the report. And I've got Martin here to answer any questions you may have on that one.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Councillor. Thanks. Thanks, Chair Mark. Good morning. Couple of questions. First of all, help me understand currently what our approach is regarding parking meter, enforcing of our parking restrictions. Because clearly there's an indication that things aren't working, that either staff aren't responding when there's an infraction. Can you expand on that? Why aren't we actually enforcing the current parking rules that we have?
We do enforce. Our resources are limited, so we've got restrictions all over the city. A lot of resources obviously put into the central city for enforcement because that's where the highest need is. Mm-hmm. We are fortunate now to have the licence plate recognition vehicles that we can use for getting further afield for enforcement purposes. Mm-hmm. So look, we do try and actively get to sites where we get complaints, but sometimes it's extremely difficult with the limited resources we currently have.
There's been an email circulating around highlighting that this is on Rifle Range, this is a crisis every weekend when there's a sporting event occurring, right?
Yep.
And we were warned in advance of the last one. Yep. Could you confirm whether or not staff proactively looked at ensuring we had a vehicle that could drive past?
Yep.
Because it appears, well, first of all, do you know if whether or not we took any proactive initiative?
Yeah, look, I can confirm we had a vehicle out there last weekend. Okay. For enforcement purposes, and we did identify a number of infringements that took place. So
and we issued infringement?
Those infringements will be issued by our normal processes, yes. So, right. And we'll be there next weekend and the weekend after, because the festival's on for 3 weekends. So we are actively, looking at these sites where we know there's a high pressure on parking.
Right.
Yep.
And so in the case where the dairy owner did the right thing, picked up the phone, called council, said there's a vehicle parked right outside illegally and was there for the whole day, as suggested.
Yeah, and I suspect that vehicle, if the vehicle was there at the time, would have obviously been noted and a possible infringement issued. I don't know if the vehicle was still there when our vehicle turned up or not, so I can't say for certain.
Can you explain whether or not we have the ability to tow vehicles?
We do have the ability to tow, yeah.
Have we?
We do occasionally tow vehicles, yes.
Did we last weekend?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Right. The current proposal in front of us, can you expand on how we've landed on the number and the time duration?
Good question. We've spent a lot of time talking with Ronak and his concerns and needs as a business owner. So where we landed with the number of spaces and the restriction was purely through discussions with Ronak, the dairy owner. Right. Yep.
In your discussions, did you discuss the fact that that location seems to already have an area for customer parking that was designated? Is that your understanding?
That's correct, yes. The staff have pointed out that the consented you know, that it exists on the building of the business for those 4 parking spaces. I must add it to that. It's consented for a loading zone as well at the rear.
Right.
So
Why do you think the applicant asked for that, and why did staff approve that?
it's not unusual to have some off-street parking area, because then that's under their control, not ours. So they can manage it and ensure that, you know, those spaces aren't necessarily being abused or being used for the right purposes. They can control their loading and unloading activities in a probably safer, better manner. And there's, as I think you pointed out earlier, there's no guarantee about the usage of the spaces actually on the public road. At any point in time, they could be changed or removed. You know, there's no guarantee that they're there forever and a day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Louise.
Thank you. Can I start with a question about rifle range? And then I have a question about Victoria, opposite the museum. I noted the feedback from someone on Aberfoyle Street that said they were happy with the changes below. I just wanted to confirm that. So that's removing the P10 parking from 8 till 6, just on that south side of Aberfoyle?
Yeah, that's correct. I think they were concerned that their visitors would be disadvantaged with that time restriction there. So.
Yeah, because
Yep.
their comment was, why do they have to be inconvenienced and have a time restriction when there's no impact on the dairy customers' use of the same parking area? So did we observe that there were dairy customers parking around the corner?
We didn't observe dairy customers parking around the corner. I suppose what we put out to the public was, and that was through discussions with Ronak, the dairy owner, that what was possible to do and what we, you know, consult on. But that was always going to be subject to any feedback from local residents. So, I mean, the resident in Aberfoyle made a very good point, so we took that on board and made the change.
Can you remind me, is the new cycle lane bi-directional on that park side of Rifle Range?
No,
It's just one way?
It's unidirectional, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Can I now ask a question about Victoria? Or did you want to just do bit by bit? Okay, cool. I'll ask it later.
Oh, Councillor Anna.
Thank you. Just a general question about Rifle Range Road. I don't go over there all that much, so I'm just curious about, I think Ronek mentioned the narrowing of the road, and if that's something that we're doing some monitoring of in terms of just the available space for people, particularly I think he mentioned with trailers. Yeah, so just some feedback on that if you've got any. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
In response through the chair, the road widths have, yes, changed. The lane widths have changed. So they are now a pretty standard 3 metre wide traffic lanes, which is not uncommon around the city. I think, you know, it's just people just getting used to the change of layout travelling through there now. It is quite different to what it was a year ago. We've not received any significant concerns around lane widths, but you know, we're currently going through a safe system audit process, which will look at safety matters that have come up. Whether that's come up or not, I'm not sure. I'm not directly involved in that independent process, but if it has, the safety audit people will have a good look at those widths.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, excuse me. I just have one question. Sorry, yes, Councillor Maxine, sure.
Just in terms of the safety audit, do they get the feedback that's been coming through to be able to have some kind of context as to what issues the public might be raising?
Certainly, those comments from the public are discussed by the project team and the auditors. Whether they make it into the actual safe system audit at the end of the day, that's down to the independent auditors to determine whether they feel it's an issue that actually needs addressing. But often you find in these audits there are, if they're not raised as a significant or major concern or a minor concern, they sometimes there's comments put in there, and often in those comment boxes are bits and pieces that may come out of community discussions.
Last question was with regard to speed limits. As I recall, it was an area that was identified as being people travelling higher than the speed limit because it's a big, fat, wide, straight road at the time. Are we observing a lowering of speeds, or are people expecting to be able to travel at what they always did?
So, I mean, apart from the road layout changes, there's been change to the speed limit in the vicinity of the park and the school.
And the
Is that
school,
correct, Pauline?
yep.
Yeah, so there's been some changes to a number of things in that area. Observed speed is definitely a slower environment now. We've currently got some, we're collecting some speed data. We'll do some further speed data later on, which will end up in an evaluation and monitoring report that we're required to do for Wakakatahi as part of the funding requirement for the project. So, and at some point we'll bring all that information to elected members through the infrastructure committee anyway.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Maxine, I was about to jump in and say this is about parking, not speed, but noted, thank you. But speaking personally, I travel that road quite often and it's noticeably different speed down there. Martin, point 43 of the report where staff proposed to install the P10 on Rifle Range Road. Have we examples of doing this in other situations and then seeing what outcomes look like when a situation like this has arisen? Can you speak to any examples where?
I mean, we often put P10s or P15s or even P5s around the city for specific purposes. That's to ensure we get high turnover of traffic.
Yeah, I get that. I'm looking for learnings from other examples of this happening, like outcomes that have resulted.
Yeah, I mean,
say for example. Sorry, you carry on.
Yes, we do outside dairies. That's quite a regular occurrence, or outside schools where you want to ensure that people aren't staying too long.
Yep.
And yes, we do observe, we do monitor. We get very good feedback from our parking team around the use of those time limits as well. So there's lots of learnings.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, that's where I was going with that. And then my last question was. No, Councillor Wilson covered that with the parking out the back. When did the new installations go in? Or they've been a winter thing, haven't they?
The new
everything that's happened on Rifle Range Road, the impact.
Oh yeah. So we've been building the project since January. We just gradually worked along the road, and we've recently finished in the last couple of weeks. So outside the dairy, I think we were working there probably a couple of months ago. So
we're yet to see what the impact of summer sports being played at Swarbrick. I think it's Swarbrick Park, isn't it? It's called.
That's correct. Yes.
That are going to do we have any thoughts on what that might look like?
Oh look, I think the big test was this weekend with the rugby festival. You know, there's a lot of people turned up from around the region.
Yep.
Hey, look, there's never enough parking outside the park or on Rifle Range Road for those huge events. And look, people took a common sense approach. They parked elsewhere and walked. And within a 5-minute walk of Swarbrick Park, there's a lot of car parking.
Yeah.
So I think if people are sensible,
Yep.
they turn up early, they don't expect to get a park outside Swarbrick Park, then everything should be fine.
Yeah.
I think overall we lost 28 car parks on Rifle Range Road as part of that project. So it wasn't a huge amount. We tried to retain as many as we could, particularly outside the school and Swarbrick Park. So, yeah.
Okay.
28 car parks out of how many total?
Oh, good question. I've forgotten the overall total now. But I think it was well over 100 in total. But we lost maybe 15 to 20%. But when we did the counts prior to the work kicking off, at the busiest times, only 50% of those spaces were occupied. So there was still quite a bit of capacity. But as I said, when you have a big event at Swarbrick Park, you're never going to have enough parking in that area.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Chair. If you'll permit me one more
Yeah.
question. I'm just needing some clarification about the charges for parking. Could you just remind me again, we're introducing some areas that will go to $6, rather than me assume I've got this right. Just walk me through the different charges we're introducing.
Can we perhaps cover that off later on, because it doesn't apply to this site?
To this particular site?
Correct.
Absolutely. Sorry.
If that's okay.
Absolutely wrong.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah. Just park that one for the moment. Yeah. That's my best. That's my best.
That's a dad joke.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Robin. And do you want to?
So do elected members want to take that particular item and vote on it now, or do you want to wrap it up with the rest of them?
I feel it feels like we can wrap it up.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine, thank you. Right, thank you, Martin.
Thanks, Martin.
Right, so now I'll start back at the beginning. So the first item up I have is clause 17 on page 19, which is some no stopping on the corner of Grey and Beale. I'm just scrolling through there. So this was just some additional parking to improve visibility at the intersection as a result of some feedback from users in the area, which was passed on from an elected member. You'll recall that there was some discussions around putting a roundabout in here that's been put on hold, so it was felt that there was some value in at least addressing the visibility, most of which is actually just compliance with the normal road rules as with regard to proximity to a corner. So if there's no questions, I'll move to the next one. Yep, okay. Next one is clause 20.
In terms of feedback about those non-stop lines, I know that we had a really wide consultation about the roundabout, and that was taken into consideration when that was shelved. Is this simply the next step?
So I guess this was treated as an independent, and recognising that the roundabout proposal's been put on hold indefinitely. So we did the consultation with the adjacent property owners as we normally would for such a restriction.
And there was
No feedback.
no. Oh, interesting. Thank you, Robin.
Okay, so the next one is Manaroa Close. So that's clause 20 on page 20. Any questions on that one?
I quite enjoyed that. The feedback was, no, we want more yellow stopping lines. And then we said, I think we said like everywhere except one spot. Do we have plans to like monitor?
Yes, very much. I guess we do try to retain some parking on streets, and that's, usually the desired outcome from the residents. It also helps just with managing speed. So we have indicated at this stage that we won't be putting in everything that's been asked, but we will keep an eye on it, and we'll continue to keep in touch with that resident and just make sure that they're comfortable with that as well.
Because that's, it's like right at the start of the street is where we're leaving a car
Yes.
park space.
Yeah.
Does that property owner, like the idea is that someone does park there for traffic calming, does the owner of that property have a car they keep on the street? Or is the expectation that someone else will park?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
sorry, but
That's okay.
Bullman Road does generate quite a lot of traffic and parking in general, so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right.
That's it.
Okay, so I'll carry on down. Next one is Memorial Drive outside Piranha Park. So that's clause 28 on page 23. So this is just making some minor changes within the existing parking to provide for, for people with mobility vans. Again, we've been contacted by a customer. I think they do a little bit of the health shuttle from outside the city, as well as rest home drivers who are looking for somewhere that they can basically park relatively easily so that their clients can go into the park. So we've got some changes to restrictions there just to provide a loading zone and some an area of P120 for just getting a little bit of turnover in that area. It is one that's fairly well used by commuter parkers because of its proximity to both Ham East and the central city. No questions? Okay.
Back from a large family, it says living opposite Piranha Park,
Yes.
and the staff response is on point, but was there any follow-up after that?
Well, we've given that feedback to them, so they haven't
and
come back again.
nothing
If they'd
yet.
come back again, we would have reflected that
Yep.
in the report.
Yep, okay, no, that's good, thank you.
Tui Karamea Road, so clause 33 on page 24. Again, having a resident requesting some no stopping. We came up with a proposal, consultation, asked for an amendment, which we have included, and they're happy on that basis. No questions? No. Okay, so now we go all the way down to clause 50 on page 29. This is where we're looking at the various bus stops in the central city, and I believe you had a question, Councillor Hutt.
Mine was one outside the
Museum? Okay. So the one outside the museum starts on clause 57. Do you want to?
You can ask your question if you like, Councillor Hutt.
I just noted in the feedback on page 32 that they just specifically requested someone from the parking team or involved with parking to directly call them. And I noted that in our feedback it said that we had referred their comments onto the parking enforcement team. But I just wanted to clarify that someone from parking enforcement will contact them directly.
Yes, that Aditya will
Please.
follow up with that. Yes.
Because I do think in the context of wanting more people to live in the CBD, and I've had similar comments from people about other car parking in the early morning or after hours further along Victoria Street, but particularly in disability car parks. So I guess this comment to me is a symptom of a wider problem.
Yes, and I guess Martin covered it off somewhat earlier around the availability of staff for doing parking enforcement, and I guess that's something that will have to be worked through as a general issue for the city.
Because can I clarify, the cars with the number plate recognition, how they're still like the same hours that a council person would be because they have a driver? Yes. Yeah, yeah. I understood that previously our policy, I'm very happy to be corrected if this is incorrect, was that if somebody put something through Anteno, we still required a staff member to go and like cite it. And so if it was put through after hours, we wouldn't be able to tick it because we couldn't get a staff member to cite that the photograph sent through Anteno was validated, I guess.
Correct. I guess for enforcement purposes, any infringement issued, we like to have our enforcement officers cite it and to make the appropriate records such that if it ends up in a court situation,
Yeah.
then we've got that information to hand.
Is there any way of amending Anteno so that if members of the public were happy to go down to the courthouse, should it end up in court, you could like tick a box to say,
I'm not sure that around Anteno, I understand it's quite limited because it's not just a Hamilton City app, but
Yeah,
Tanya may.
through the chair, councillor, I think that's something we would need to take back to our legal team because it's around
Yeah.
an enforcement action and
Yeah.
ensuring that we are able to legally enforce the
Yeah.
infringement.
because that's the barrier, right, is that we're assuming that members of the public won't turn up if it goes to court, potentially.
Yeah, and it's about ensuring that we've got the correct validation of times and
Yeah.
the appropriateness of our parking wardens are warranted officers.
Yeah.
So those are the people who can infringe, as you know, and the police obviously have
Yeah.
traffic infringements. So happy to take that offline and speak with our legal team about opportunities that we can use to do that.
Because otherwise, do we have after hours wardens for the CBD, or is that something that CitySafe could kind of?
Through our recent restructure of our organisation, we have an opportunity to look at how we can, and the licence plate recognition vehicles as well, we have an opportunity going forward to look how we can further enhance that parking enforcement, whether that's through our enforcement officers in parking or our CitySafe people. So that's something that's a staff operational matter that we'll look to see, particularly as you've noted with the future increase of residents
People living,
and people
yeah.
coming into the city and the regional theatre and all
Yeah.
those other offerings that the city is able to give, and also the wider across the city and the restrictions in terms of large events as well. So as noted by Martin, we have a small resourcing of staff, so it's how we best use those staff to address those issues.
And just one last, if I might. Our CCTV camera network, which is pretty comprehensive in the CBD, there's no way of using that to kind of validate some of the stuff we're getting?
I can't comment.
Okay.
It would be quite labour intensive though, because you would be requiring a person to be zooming in and addressing and looking at those issues. So
Because I assume that, and this is an assumption, when we get reports through Anteno, there's some way of like noticing trends of someone's always complaining about a car park blocking a driveway, or, you know, there's always someone complaining that there's a disability car park with a non-disability permitted car in there. So we can't, I'm just thinking about those instances where we have like a trend of data coming through to validate.
yep. So when we've got a trend or an event like the event we've just had, we will start to proactively go into those areas, noting that there's no specific time of day when these events happen. So you may have someone who is perceived to be regularly parking in a spot that's not meant to be parked there between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. and we go out there at that time and that person's come in at 11 a.m. So
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just notice members of the public who put stuff through Antino and feel that they're like telling council but don't get any response back, and I know that it's complex legally, so just trying to work through all the possible solutions.
Yeah, and that's there's some limitations to that, and that's about us communicating that back to our residents. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm assuming we're asking questions on all of the bus stop changes in the CBD at the moment. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just in regards to the regional theatre and the bus stops across the road there, I guess just a question. Obviously, we're all concerned with parking in the regional theatre and wanting it to be a success. I have trouble assessing that without knowing the full picture of parking at the regional, or what the options are and what will be for the regional theatre. So I'm just asking when that fuller picture of parking provision and options will come back to us.
So we've been working with the regional theatre and looking at the parking restrictions immediately outside their proposed theatre. So between Sappermore Jones and Embassy Park, we're certainly looking at providing some more coach parking, because we believe that the theatre will be somewhere that's likely to have coaches coming in and doing the drop-off sort of pick-up rather than bus stops as such, and loading zones. The idea with the loading zones is to deal with the activities of the theatre, and we're encouraging that to happen in Sappermore Jones itself. So where you've got a truck unloading Coke or whatever, versus loading of passengers and those sorts of activities, which we'd be encouraging in Victoria Street. So we've been working through that with them. And the intention will be to come to this committee. It's probably going to be I think December meeting is the one that we're targeting at this stage. But yes, we're certainly working with them on that.
Cool, thank you. That's great.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Mark. Just turning to page 29, the bus stop on Collingwood Street. So we're going to remove the bus stop there. What happens to the bus shelters?
So there's only one bus shelter in there, and that's one of the Umedia Adshel ones. So we're working with them around getting that removed. Noting that contract comes to an end about September next year. So just, working with them on that. We don't see it as being a major difficulty being there, but we obviously need to make it clear to anyone that they don't sit there with the expectations that a bus does turn up. So that's probably the biggest thing we need to manage for that particular site.
Yeah, thank you. Have you turned your mind to the safety aspects of that bus stop? The shelter still being there. There are a number of very large garbage containers. What's the bins, skips, and every morning a big truck goes in and blindly goes head in, and then tries to back out. Mm-hmm. And when the bus shelter's there, and we're now going to have then multiple cars there, has anybody turned their mind to the safety aspects, just regarding that transaction?
Yeah, that's certainly something we can have a look at. I guess this is a ongoing difficulty we have, particularly within the CBD, as how we service these various businesses. So.
I personally I walk past it every morning.
Yes, so thank you
for that. I personally observe a couple of times young kids that, for whatever reason, run past and not realising that there is a truck about to come out, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you.
I have some other questions, but I think we're only talking about bus shelters currently, the bus stops.
The bus stops, yes, we're coming to the parking.
I have some questions regarding parking infringement with photographs. and, but I'll wait to the next
Okay.
opportunity.
So we're done with that one? Okay.
I think that bus has left the station. so,
Okay.
yeah.
The opportunities are just endless. Right, so now we move through to changes to the traffic bylaw. So the bylaw has various registers within it, which enables us to either permit or restrict vehicle activity. The first one that we have is a change to our higher productivity motor vehicles, HPMV vehicles. These are the ones with the yellow H plate on them. Currently, the route coming in is shown at clause 69 with the series of red dots. That's the route that's currently designated for any of those sorts of vehicles to come through to our water treatment station. With the opening of the bridge, we're intending to have those heavier trucks come and use that route instead. No questions? Cool. No? Okay.
Have we had any dialogue with the major freighting companies regarding that?
I have spoken to I think they're called Transporting New Zealand now. They used to be the Road Transport Forum representative. He thought it was sensible. It's a lot better route for them than going through
Cool.
a rural road. So,
I
yeah.
was just asking that we've at least spoken to the industry people.
Yes.
You have, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So then the next one is also a higher productivity motor vehicle one. This one's for access off Ruakura Road and into the port. So clause 71 has got a plan that tries to illustrate in green where the private roads are that are run by TGH, Tainui Group Holdings, and they have indicated that they would like and are willing to accept the higher productivity motor vehicles going into their sites, so we have a short link there, and that was directly in response to requests from operators going to their site. Right.
Pain.
Yes, I apologise for the lack of straightness of the line.
It's pretty clear. It just means that anybody at the bottom end of the Tauhika Road or lane has to then just go back along that lane to get onto Ruakura Road.
Correct.
That's the consequence, isn't it? Yep.
Yes,
Cool.
and so I guess when they first approached me, it was making sure that Tainui Group were happy with those vehicles coming in there, because that's basically the only destination in the area suitable for those sorts of vehicles, and we certainly didn't want them going any further up that road, because it changes quite quickly from that industrial into a rural road.
And the roading pavement needs to be built in a different way to be able to take the weight, or is
Yes,
that...
so I guess that section of that road, Harakiki Road, has been built to that industrial standard, so there was an expectation that we were going to have those heavies in there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Any questions on this next one? So, oh no, I'm just joking, sorry.
so now we come to the meter parking places and zone parking register. So there's two parts to this. One is to change the register general information, which is to reflect the decisions that were made through the LTP to reduce the 2-hour free parking down to 1 hour free parking from October, and to introduce the demand responsive pricing. And I think that's what you were hoping to ask questions on, Councillor, so I'm happy to do that now if you like.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair, the question simply is, could you take me through the scale of charges again, and just highlight the different series of charges for the all-day parking versus on-demand? Yeah, just
All-day paid parking, we'll start there, like kind of on the outskirts a bit more. Currently is $6 a day.
yep.
That from the 1st of October can be reviewed and can be adjusted, and I'm reading the words off the website here, so adjusted no less than 3 monthly, no more than annually, adjustments no less than 50 cents, no more than $3, maximum charge of 12. So that's that one,
So it's currently $6,
correct.
but we could put it up, but we haven't put it up.
So this comes into effect from 1st of October.
Yeah.
What we'll be doing is doing monitoring of the sites, looking at the demand in those, because it's demand responsive. Those sites that have high demand will be looking at increases of those costs
Up to 12.
up to a maximum of 12, yes.
So just to remove any ambiguity, the road leading up to Ruakiwi Road by the lake,
Tainui?
Tainui.
Yep.
Sorry, I had a momentary brain fade. What's it currently?
$6.
$6, okay. And as of October, that could, subject to the demand analysis, go up to $12.
It would be no more than $3 per change.
Right,
So
so 6
it
and
would
8.
be incremental, but it could eventually end up at $12 if there was that much demand there.
Okay. Explain to me how the driver would realise that. Would that be simply they would go to the app where it's been $6 and they go, oh, it's gone up by 3?
So, so all of the all-day paid parking, you're correct, is through the app. What we're working on at the moment is what the comms would be around that. Our intention would be that through the app we can actually do push messages, so we can actually tell people in advance that that change is coming. And then we'll be looking at things like call flute on the site 2 weeks in advance and those sorts of things. So the intention would be to make sure that people are very aware of the pending change and for it not to be a surprise one morning.
Okay. If I could, Chair, just to remove any ambiguity, is staff going to make those decisions to go up by $3, or does it come back to us each time?
Through you, Chair. So through the LTP, Councillor Wilson, you have approved. Those parameters,
Yep.
and then based on demand response, the data that we get, staff will make those decisions.
Okay. I'm really glad I asked some of these questions because I had some okay. Excellent. So that covers that example. Mm-hmm. Walk me now through the fees and the mechanisms for what I used to know as the 2-hour free parking going down to 1 hour.
Yes.
That for hour 2, what that is.
So that then
6.
moves to demand responsive.
Yep.
That has a range of $1 to $6. Once again, the adjustments being no less than 50 cents and no more than $3 at a time.
So if I bowl into a car park and I jump in, I put my number plate in the machine goes, oh, Ewan gets his 1 hour free,
Yes.
but any subsequent hour, the machine will tell me I need to put in $1 or...
It's somewhere between $1 and $6. It will depend exactly where you've parked. So
And the machine's bright enough to know to answer that question.
yes, it basically will be programmed to know what area it's in, and we will be looking at that, and we're working on the signage, etc., for that, so it's clear to motorists when they're choosing to park in those areas.
Okay. Please bear with me, Mr. Chair. So I've parked my car and I'm actually there for 4 hours, but when I parked my car initially, I thought I was only going to be there for 2 hours. So the machine is going to give me my first hour free. My interaction with the machine, I'm telling it I'm going to be there for 2 hours, so it charges me, subject to the demand, maybe $1, could be $3, right? But I end up not coming back to my car for 4 hours. Meanwhile, staff drive around in the car, it captures the number plate and realises, oh, Ewan should have left an hour ago. What does it do? What does it charge?
I might need to get staff to help me with this, but the if you have your 1 hour for free and you have paid for an additional hour,
Yep,
no matter what the charge is,
yep,
and you have overstayed your 2 hours
Yep.
that you have, given yourself, and an enforcement officer or the license plate recognition vehicle goes past that, say, 2 hours 30,
yep,
you would receive an infringement unless you had gone and topped up
on the
or,
app.
or used the app to top up.
Excellent. And what would I be, what's the infringement at that stage?
The infringement would be
It's overstaying.
overstay.
Overstay.
Which is a flat fee of,
$12. Is it?
no,
Sorry, $30. Correct
I was
me.
going to say $12, okay, that's $30.
Yes.
Okay,
No, sorry, Councillor Wilson, noting that those infringement fines are also set by legislation,
that's
by
cool.
central government.
But it's $30.
Yep.
And if I had parked in that original spot and said I'm going to be there for 8 hours, I know I get 1 hour free, so I'm paying for 7. What would I, in theory, pay? I'm just trying to compare to make sure that
I believe that the intention of what we call short-term parking is to not have people parking for those 8 hours, and that's the
And that's
all-day
why-
parking.
that's why I'm testing.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
So you're going to be paying per hour.
I know.
Yeah. So
And in theory, that per hour could be just $1. And if I was there for depending, so that could just be for a total of 7.
I'm not,
But it also could be, look, excuse me if you know the answer, I just don't know the answer, and that's why I'm just...
and I guess our difficulty is that the person that's probably most over this is Glenn Bunting, and he's not here. Sorry, we probably weren't expecting this. So it might be something that we can provide some clarity for you.
Respectfully, Chair, we're about to enable all of this, right? At least elected members and staff need to know before we implement, and so that's why I feel this is really important, because I don't know if I could actually walk out of here and articulate what I'm signing off on, and so I need to know that. Sure.
Yeah,
Line of,
yes, please ask away.
because I just want to make sure we're really clear on this. The demand responsive part of this is not demand responsive in the moment. It's not going to fluctuate $2 in an hour, and at 1 o'clock it'll be $4 an hour. It's demand responsive across, Seddon Road is a high use area, but over by the museum is a low use area. That's the demand responsive, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so-
It has a time limit for how often we change those. So yes, there are schemes overseas that literally do change throughout the day depending on demand, and that's certainly not where we're going. We're going as per what was set out and agreed in the fees and charges regime for the longer term plan.
Even though there might be places where we were charging $1 an hour, those are places where we know there is a desire for a turnover of cars, rather than places where we've implemented the $6 all-day parking, like those are two different use cases, even though you might, there may be one or two spots in the city you could get a $5 all-day secret park, but it's just over there that's really inconvenient and no one's parking there.
Yes, and I guess that's the point of the monitoring that we'll be doing, is to understand how that demand is working, and if we're seeing that demand ramp up, then the prices will as well, because it's demand responsive.
Yeah. And so, if it has a cheaper price attached to it, it's because fewer people are parking there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask a different question? Not on the ins and outs of how the demand responsive works?
With all due respect, Chair, I'm still waiting for the answer.
You know, that's okay. That's why I'm
on
asking,
my
can I move
question.
on or not? Because
Oh,
if we're
okay.
not moving on, that's fine. I'll hold it. Yeah.
Councillor Taylor has a question
Has
as
a
well.
question
Okay, cool.
too. Is that
Yep.
on this? Yep, go
So
ahead.
it's actually on the all-day, on the $6 all-day parking. My question is that, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Back to yours. Can I, Roman, my assumption, given that charging all-day parking on the street is fairly new to our residents, and parking is always controversial. My assumption was that before we as a council decided to ramp up charges from $6 upwards, that staff would be coming back to councillors to socialise, to ask that first through transport and infrastructure.
I'll let Tanya.
Is that not the case? Are you
I'll
saying?
let Tanya answer that, as she answered it previously.
So Councillor Jeff, the long-term plan gave staff the direction of particularly around the 2 hours to the 1 hour free parking to be implemented from the 1st of October, with the demand responsive pricing to also start from that time. Then the fees and charges decision set us the parameters of how we apply those fees and charges to those particular areas, both for the on-street parking and for the all-day commuter parking.
Okay, so if staff decide 6 months later, after it's been introduced in October, that they want to bump up the prices for commuter parking, would you come back to transport and infrastructure and ask the committee what it thought first?
It's not to say we can't, and so we can, and we can either do that through a briefing to socialise those changes with you, or as a decision-making process. I'd have to defer to Amy, I guess, in the terms of where we've made a decision through the long-term plan versus how we operationalise that decision.
Okay. How could that be enshrined, that staff need to come back to councillors to get approval before bumping up?
For the different changes?
Can that be done here today, or does that need to be?
Sorry, that one would be outside of the delegation of this committee, so we'd have to take it up. I was just looking at whether it was the infrastructure committee or whether it was the council. I just have to
Okay.
check that resolution.
Because I'm surprised that whether or not in the black and white says that staff can do it, I would have thought that it would have been with something like parking, particularly with on-street commuter parking, that staff would think it wise to come back to a committee
Yep, agree with you.
first.
Yep, agree
but
with your
I'm alarmed
point.
that doesn't seem to be the thinking.
And happy to take your direction on that, Councillor Jeff, and happy to bring that back to council, the appropriate committee for those future decisions.
Okay, so thank you. So you're saying that staff will bring it back to a committee or full council before bumping up the commuter on street? Because otherwise I can't support this today.
I think, again, I'm deferring to Amy to make sure I'm following the appropriate process, but we're more than comfortable to bring that through the direction was the scale, like the scope, as I said, we had been given that direction in terms of the fees and charges schedule. Apologies if that wasn't clear on where the decision, the future decision making of how that scale was applied. So we're more than comfortable to bring that back to the appropriate committee or council for future
Great, thank you.
decisions.
Look, I'm not saying there was any mistake or issue there or anything. It's probably more on my part, but I probably just would have assumed that staff would think it useful to come back before making a decision like that. That's all. But if I can have some sort of assurance that will happen, then that would change my thinking.
So if I may, through the chair, the register is to enable the change to remove the 2 hour to 1 hour.
Yep, fine with that.
And to keep to the long-term plan resolution that we start to introduce demand responsive pricing. So, and again, I'm looking at Amy for guidance, but if we were able to have that register in place, noting that staff will bring back fees and charges for approval via the appropriate committee. And if that was, if
Yeah,
that's
I was going
within
to go with a staff action to investigate how we can make these things, because I can't, to put it as a full resolution when it's not
Yes.
within the delegation of the committee, that's where I'm struggling, but I can assure you that we'll have a staff
So
action.
if it's a staff action to note
Investigate
that,
how.
and I'm happy to follow it through after this
Exactly.
to see how that goes.
Yeah, because the how is the part that we've,
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Bits of Seddon Road are moving to demand responsive. We're not approving whether or not that's $4 or $2 or whatever.
What, $6?
Yeah, whatever, like, we're not deciding that. We're simply putting this into the aforementioned framework.
Yes, so if I may, through the chair, Councillor Louise, the part I think that's under discussion is around paragraph 75 or 74, 75. We're talking about the parking places, zones and parking register. The Seddon Park piece is where we will put in new.
Yep.
This is about how we enforce this or go forward in terms
Yeah,
of that.
I guess I'm just like,
They're two separate items.
yeah,
yes,
cool.
Yeah.
Chair, I wonder if I could have one more crack at trying to get it. Yep.
Notice Councillor Anna's had her hand up
Sure.
for time, but I do want to come back to you.
No, go ahead.
Councillor Anna.
Thank you. Just to follow on from Jeff's question, I guess we're going to determine the process for coming back to council and the timeframes of that. I'm just a little bit concerned about how we remain responsive as we do that. So I guess just, what am I? I just would like to understand that if we're going to be checking, and I accept that we might need to do that, checking before prices go up and approving them, just that, yeah, that we can still remain responsive as per the idea of the whole thing. So that's probably not very clear, but
No, it's
just in our decision making, if we can make sure that the whole idea isn't blown out because of our timeframes, I suppose, and we can delay things a lot through our meeting processes, and I'm just flagging a concern, I guess.
Point. Tanya's going to answer that question
I
for
will.
you.
Thank you, Chair Mark.
Thank you.
So I think what is important to clarify is this is not, what's the word for it, intuitive demand response pricing. So it's not on a scale of this week we increase, next week we decrease. So there is a set, and through that LTP decision, a set time frame and a minimum time frame of 3 months. So if we were to gather the data on a particular zone that requires the fee to be increased or decreased, that's in a 3 month period. So we will be we will be responsive in terms of in the parameters that we've got and the limitations of the technology that we have currently in place. So to simply answer your question, no, it won't restrict us in making those changes by coming through a committee process.
Would take 12 weeks.
Could do, yes.
Hang on.
Jump over Councillor Ewan's, but
Can,
Chair, can I have
yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
I still feel I'm
promise you.
entitled to
Yep.
get an answer to my question.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if staff, maybe if I do this dance a different way. What is currently the maximum per hour after the first free?
2 hours free. It then flicks to $6 an hour.
Okay. And that is on the basis, as Councillor Louisa said, it doesn't vary during the day. But it's this, the staff have identified that particular car park as the highest in demand. Let's just say that's the case, right? And that would be a maximum of $6 an hour.
Yes, for the short-term parking, yes.
That's all I'm talking
Yes,
about.
yep, I'm
Okay.
making sure I'm giving you the right
Okay.
answer. Yep,
So if I park in the short-term parking space, in the highest demand, and I was there for 8 hours, okay?
yes,
The first hour is free.
yes,
The subsequent 7 hours are at $6 an hour
yes,
for a total of $42.
yes,
If I park there and put no money in the machine, the most I'm going to get a bill for is $30.
is that correct, or do they, I think they
Is it, it's a sliding
I
or
yeah,
increasing scale,
it
isn't
is an
of
increasing
fines?
scale of fines, I believe.
Okay? You believe,
I'm almost 100% certain on that, yeah.
okay? Can we find that out?
Yes.
And can we find out what the scale is and the time period? Chair, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm simply trying to find out what we're implementing today. And there are more unanswered questions than answered questions. And it astounds me we can have a single point of failure, that one staff member isn't here and these things can't be answered, because the average person would want to know.
So I guess understanding your question better, so thank you for the new dance. Martin's just going to check with our enforcement team who deal with that on a daily basis to understand what the infringement fees you could achieve through that process.
All right, and final question on this is, the top figure on the highest demand street is $6 per hour.
In the short-term parking,
Yep.
correct? Yes,
Yeah, sorry,
Yep.
I am only talking about short term, which used to be 2 hours free, right?
Correct.
That's all I'm talking about. We've already had the discussion on the 6 hours.
yes,
$6 for the day.
all-day paid parking.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, all right. In the less high demand areas, just remind me what the sliding scale is.
It moved, so the scale is between $1 and $6 an hour.
Right. Okay. And we know that because when you go to the machine or the app, it tells you whether this is a one, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and there's signage in the street that shows you all of that, yes.
Perfect, that's getting clearer. Thanks, Chair. I think I'm slightly more informed now, and I could explain that to a ratepayer if I walked into the ratepayer.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Maxine, you still have a question?
Yes, it was with regard to the inquiry that Councillor Casey Cox was exploring, and the point that Jeff raised regarding coming back to committee for increases in costs. My concern, and I just want some clarity and some assurance, that we won't be overloading a committee with a slew of individual street or zone changes for increases of little as 50 cents. How might, we be able to manage that so that we don't have, a huge changes and sit for hours debating a 50-cent increase?
Point. I'm just raising the issue. I'm not quite sure what standing order. Just scope. It appears to be we've decided we're going to ask governance for a process, and now we're having a series of questions on the subject matter that has yet to be determined from governance of how we're going to. I just feel we're going to go down this long hole. I think it is scope, standing orders. Yeah. If you require the standing order, issue of scope, I guess I'm asking you to rule on that.
Yeah, I will, if I can ask you to hold off on that, Councillor Maxine. I'll rule in favour of Councillor Ewan because I do think it's just slightly out of scope. I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's for us.
Okay, but I just wonder whether we can just make that a part of that staff action, that we are able to then find some answers to that and a solution.
Yep.
Thank you.
Staff can look into that. Thanks. Councillor Louise?
Can I ask about Norris Wood Park?
Councillor Jeff did have his light on. I wonder. Yeah, go on. Yep, go ahead. Yep. Are you okay with that, Robin, if we go to Norris Wood Park?
I have an answer for Councillor Wilson.
Oh, okay. Can you just hold back for a second, Councillor Hutt, and then we'll circle back to you
Okay.
on the
so
orbiter.
Thanks to the lovely Amy who found the right page on the website for us. So your infringement fee starts at $12 and can go up to $57 depending on the length of stay. If you're parking in a mobility space without authorisation, it has a fine of $150.
But the most important question that we needed to know is the duration. So what is the duration of an infringement? Because that makes it even...
So it'll go to 57. That's it.
No. So an enforcement officer of the vehicle drives past and issues an infringement of $12, right?
If the
And then drives past again and
Yeah,
says you're still
and-
there, and then it goes up.
it
As if
cancels.
you're still there, and it goes up, and they take away the first one,
Okay, so
up to 57.
up to 57, but how often?
How often they go past, or do you want the how?
There's
There
one.
must
every
be in
30 minutes.
statute, there must be in statute, if you issue an infringement, the $12, it must have a duration. Or,
Is the part that's the restrictive, which is also the part that staff have put in a lovely submission on because of it being set from quite some time ago. And it was 30 minutes, but let me bring up the legislation.
Still 30 minutes.
It's still 30 minutes?
Yes.
Right.
Was 30 minutes. It is still 30 minutes.
okay, so in theory, that you could park and your first infringement is $12, and if our officer walks back in 30 minutes' time and you haven't topped up, then I can keep putting that up. But the infringement officer could keep putting it up to the total of $57.
That's it. So more than the 42 that we were talking about earlier,
Right,
with the
and-
parking there versus not
and-
paying.
I was just trying to, because the first bit of advice, I think, Robin, you said the infringement was $30.
That was, Martin believed it was.
Oh, sorry, Martin.
Sorry.
It's
Yeah,
all right, mate. So it's not $30,
It's 12
it's $12 per infringement
for the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then capped at 57. You can't go any higher than 57. So if you park there for 10 hours, it's $57. If you park there for 8 hours, it's likely to be $57.
Can I ask staff the practicality of that, in the sense that how likely is our current resources and staff that we're going to keep coming back every 30 minutes?
I think it depends on the location, councillor. You know, if we've got resources certainly within the central city area when we're using the LPR vehicle, then we can get round more efficiently and we can probably pick a few more of those types of infringements up more regularly. I can't tell you today how many of those we've had without going through all the records, but yeah, it's more likely to be caught these days than it was 2 or 3 years ago, put it that way.
If I may, through the chair, Councillor Wilson, there's some very valid points that you're making about the fees and charges element of this, and if I can redirect us back to the ability to change the register for the demand responsive pricing to come into play. The information that you're all seeking from us today, we can bring back to you in full, so that we've got the right information and the right people, and we can actually explain the nuances and how that demand responsive pricing, along with the kiosk and the electronic, the data that we will be able to easily access now, the more than what we had been prior to the meter heads.
Okay.
And we can bring that into either into that report or into a future briefing for your awareness.
Right, thank you. Chair, I have another question, but I'm happy to go after Councillor Hart on a totally separate subject. Yep.
Satisfied with
Yeah,
Tanya's
yeah,
answer?
you've
Because
answered
I
the
certainly
question. I mean, it's been, I think, very important, because I went from thinking it was $30 to it only 12. At least we now know it's 30 minutes. Yeah,
Can I ask for
that
those
would be
of us-
really helpful if that had been in the report.
And just a note, can you make sure it's... Thanks, Councillor Hutt, for your patience.
Yeah. Can I just clarify, before I finally get to ask about Norriswood Park, that this flow chart of how the prices increase over time, that's always been how it worked. Like 3 years ago, that was how it worked. 6 months ago, there was a sliding scale of some numbers.
For the enforcement, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we're
that's
not
not-
in fact
that's not new.
changing the way that people are ticketed.
No.
No.
Yeah,
And those fines are set at a national level,
Yeah.
not by ourselves.
and they were recently increased.
No, they've actually.
What they're talking about?
They've been out to consultation on increasing the fees.
Right.
That's all been fed back by councils around the country. Still waiting for a decision
Right.
whether they're going to change or not.
So the actual process as a whole is as it's always been.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Norriswood Park, I noticed there was quite a bit of feedback from the various tenants, and I see that we've referred most of it back to parks because they're in a park. But I was just wondering clarity about thinking back to what we heard previously from the tennis club on the other side of the Western Town Belt, and their challenges of, I think there was some like loophole of like they're in a park and so we can't infringe people on parking or something. Does that still stand for Norriswood as well?
Yes, so we've been working with the parks team to look at how they can either do a change through their Parks and Reserves bylaw, or we do a change to our traffic bylaw that enables us to carry out enforcement in parks.
Yeah. And would we apply it to all the parks or just the couple that we'd had complaints from?
We'd be working with the parks team on that.
Okay.
And I would assume that it would be in response to complaints.
Okay. And there was some comment in there about like contractors had blanked out signs that reserved parking. Are we able to just verify that? Because I was sort of a bit shocked at that.
Yep, we can follow up on that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Well, Louise, I remember that discussion about the parks. It was a good one. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Chair. Actually, two questions. Just final on this sliding scale of infringements. Am I correct in the maximum an infringement officer can issue in any one infringement is $12?
No, it's up to $57, councillor. That's the maximum, as set by the legislation.
Okay. So an officer could walk past and it's out of time, and the officer can, and at that stage the officer would have data as in theory how long that vehicle's been there.
Yes.
And how does the officer determine what the fine is? Based on the number of hours?
Yes. I'm looking at Robin. Yes.
And that's in their handheld device.
Right.
So they would, they would indicate how many hours it is, and that generates the fee.
So if that vehicle isn't, if that data isn't in the device, i.e. they didn't bother put the number plate in when they first parked, what's the fine?
$12. Because they can only do it from the time that they've actually logged the vehicle being in that space.
So here's my question. If I pull into a short-term, in theory what is a short-term parking space, and I choose not to put my my name and the number in the number plate, and I walk away, the maximum I can get is $12. Well, I know you're shaking your head, Amy, and that's really helpful, but that's not the information I've just got from staff, because what they've said is, the maximum they can do is from when they cited it if it isn't in the data. Then staff said, but if it's in the data, then we can... So what is it?
If I may, councillor.
Do we have someone from parking?
I was just going to
infringement?
say we don't have our parking infringement team here, so staff are trying to answer questions that we don't necessarily are prepared or have the answers for.
Chair, just procedure. I'm not prepared to make a decision on this today, and I'd have to vote against the whole lot. Could it be an opportunity to adjourn for 10 minutes, get the qualified staff, because we're being asked to implement a series of parking rules that have immediate ramifications. I want to understand what those rules are. And if we don't have staff here who are qualified,
Yeah,
I'm blind.
Yes, understood. And another note is potentially to propose a separate session on infringements completely and move this to another time. But in the meantime, I'm going to propose it, because it's 11 o'clock anyway, let's have a 10-minute recess just to get our heads around this for a second, stretch legs, get a coffee, and maybe staff can come back to us. Okay, so we'll be back at 11:15, we'll call it. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, good shout. I like Councillor Anna's text actually about proposing a session on infringements. I just wonder, is that a workshop or is it a... Back up and running, okay. Councillor Jeff and Councillor Tim, can I ask you to park yourselves, please? God, oh God, I'm on fire. Yeah, right, thanks Martin, and I believe Chris is here as well. Yep, as soon as your light's on, you'll be able to...
Yeah, I'll just introduce
Yeah, if you
Chris
could- if you could,
to
thanks,
people in the
Martin.
chamber. So
Yep.
this is Chris Parker, sitting next to Martin Parks, talking about parking. So there's your headline for the Waikato Times. So Chris is a very experienced parking enforcement officer in our team. So he's one of our senior parking enforcement officers. Here to just answer the questions around infringements and fines and just give you the facts straight.
We will go to question. Can I hand over to you, Councillor Wilson, to ask your question in the... There you go. Thanks. Thanks, Chris, for coming in too, by the way. Appreciate it.
Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
Chris, can I first ask if an owner of a vehicle parks in a car park that has the first hour free and stays longer and chooses not to put the registration number in the machine or on the app,
Yep.
what is the infringement that you're able to issue?
Okay. If it's a first-time offence, if they haven't done it before, they'll actually get a warning. There'll be an initial warning. If they repeat it and they come into town and they don't register it, the live ticket will be a $40 fine.
$40 fine.
Yep.
Excellent. And is that $40 fine for the 24-hour period or for the duration, or what is the duration?
It will be for the duration.
For the
of the day.
duration.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right, thank you. If I was to park for 8 hours in the 1 hour free parking,
Yes.
my first hour is free, and assuming that the area is high demand, I'm understood to believe that it's $6 per hour that you pay. But let's say if I only pay for 1 hour and I stay for 8 hours, explain to me what fine you would levy.
Okay, so after it goes up, after your time, allocated time, it will go between 0 to 30 minutes, less than an hour, then 2 hours to 4 hours, 4 hours to 6 hours. So it's the lowest one starts at $12 up to $57. So if you decided to stay all day and you hadn't paid for more, the max we would do is $57. And that would just be every time we come back, if ticket's still there, we just upgrade and upgrade.
Okay. Right. So I guess that's been very helpful. So in theory, potentially you could be fined $57, but you'd be better off not putting your car registration in the app or the machine, because the maximum we could fine you was 40.
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you. That answers that. My question to Martin Parks, now being aware of that, it's a very small loophole, but why do we not do we have the ability to fine up to the 57, which is the max, for not putting the car number plate in the machine? Because basically, do we have that option?
No, we don't, unfortunately, because those fines are actually set at a national level, legislation out of central government. So, you know, you've got your different fine categories. We don't set those.
Right.
So, I mean, I think, you know, with the amendments to the fines that's currently going through the system at the moment, they're trying to actually address that type of situation, but our hands are tied.
Could we tow the vehicle?
I would probably ask Chris to answer about towing.
I think what we might do is just pause there. I just feel it's a little bit out of scope for the advice I'm getting. So we might just, you don't have to answer that question, Chris, but can I just ask a pause
Okay.
on that?
Yeah,
Thanks,
I respect
Councillor
your
Wilson.
ruling, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hart, did you have a question?
I was just seeking some clarity again about this resolution today. Apologies. Because basically what we're doing is updating the meter parking places and zone parking register.
Yes, that's correct, which is aligned with the, the decision that was made through the LTP.
Yeah, so we're just performing the really boring regulatory function and we're just putting this information from the LTP into this legislated register, right?
Correct, yes.
So we're not changing anything from the LTP decision. We're not setting a fee or anything other than what was determined in the LTP.
Correct, yes. And the feedback we've received today is the changes to those fees. We're noting that will come back to a committee, to the appropriate committee or to council for decision making.
Okay. And if people were to vote against this,
we would not be able to implement the decision that was made by council through the long-term plan process.
right? And so the discussion about, I guess, how this works as a framework should have been had at the LTP when we approved it there.
I think there's two parts to that, Councillor Louise. We provided information on how the scale would work. The mechanics of the implementation was probably not fully explored at that time.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Louise. I've just noticed that we don't have Councillor Anna online. Oh, okay. All right. We still have quorum though, don't we? Okay. Okay. Well, okay.
Things. This is just one last.
Okay.
Can I just clarify before we go into debate and voting what staff action is coming out of that issue that I raised? I just want to.
Staff are going to undertake to facilitate means to address the concerns of the decision-making process for the, I wrote it as DRT. Hang on, what's the actual non-acronym? Demand responsive parking.
Yeah. In regard to the all-day.
Demand responsive parking, full stop, was my. Do you want the all-day parking in there as well?
Well, I wasn't expecting, in terms of demand responsive with, Central City and Parkers, it's a different thing, but I was really specifically just about the all-day parking.
Okay.
But am I right in thinking that is actually a council decision that is actually would have to be changed in order to?
That's my immediate instinct, but I want time to look through what the resolution was,
Yeah.
what was the scope.
Okay, so last one. So the only way that I could get some surety there would be if staff were to actually guarantee to make a commitment to come back to.
Which would be outside of the scope of this. That's where our struggle is that what this report is seeking and what is within the delegations of this committee.
All right, so we've signed up for something. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mr Chair, can I request that item 4 on page 17, which is the commuter parking, be taken separately in the vote?
Item 4, page 17.
I think it's page 17.
Demand responsive pricing fee.
Update metered parking place in zone vote, CBD commuter parking, Seddon Road, etc.
So is that going to take a minute to type up or no?
Because they're just leaving it as is.
Okay. So, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, Chair, I've just got a question of staff and of governance. The subject matter that's in front of us today, the restrictions and control, that is operationalising a decision from the LTP. Governance is concerned regarding the issue of scope. Since the subject matter is restrictions and controls,
Is a very wide bow.
well, that's what it's called.
No,
Okay.
what I'm going is that what the direction that they're seeking, so the resolution itself that is being sought, is the changes to enable the resolution of the council. That's why when we're going into infringements, it was right on that edge or the outside, similar to what your questions were with Councillor Maxine a little bit earlier. So I can understand where there's a lot of interlink, because there is much interlink, and that's why we were letting it go and go and go, but we started to move right past that.
Okay, I accept your ruling.
So, just 1 second. What am I doing?
For C.
Well, I'm happy to move the motion with the exception of 4C. Councillor Hutt to second it? Okay, all right. Okay, thanks for coming in, Chris and Martin, and thank you, Robin, for your work as well.
Mr Chair, just for process, we'll just debate the whole thing.
Shall we? Yep, okay.
Seems a lifetime ago we were talking about
Yeah. Okay, I don't, as mover of the motion, I don't have any debate. Councillor Louise, would you like to seconder?
Yeah. I actually wanted to mention Piranha Park because I just wanted to note to staff that, like, this is disability inclusion in action. You know, it seems really small to add in a loading zone outside a park, but I am really proud of us for getting that request and then doing something with it. That's actually really meaningful. So, like, thank you for taking that and doing something with it. I also wanted to note the increased, and I'm like not taking the piss by saying this, like I did find that there was increased clarity in this report in terms of those tables of like the feedback was this, our response was this is how we changed the proposal. Like that was really clear and easy to read through in the report, and I really appreciated just seeing how many times we had really tried with residents to do as much as what their feedback allowed us to do. And I know there were times where we couldn't quite do it all, but just from a governance perspective, being able to see that really clearly laid out was really valuable, and I appreciate it. I guess my other thoughts are simply that we do get this agenda 5 days in advance, and we do have every option to send questions in advance to staff before the meeting. Staff are allowed to be sick or be on annual leave, or for whatever reason not be at work. And so I tend to see this happening with transport more than any other department of council, but we as elected members do have that ability to ask questions in advance and have them prepared and ready for the meeting. So there is always that opportunity that we could choose to take up.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Turning my mind to the issue of Rifle Range Road, at the end of the day, I would not and did not support the overall project, but once the project has been implemented, I expect staff to proactively enforce the rules. And I look forward to staff being overly proactive in ensuring that the new rules are monitored and infringements are issued. The city needs to be seen to be fulfilling its own enforcement criteria. I'm also noted to say that although I have sympathy for the dairy on Rifle Range Road, I highlight the fact that that particular commercial property has a resource consent that enables offloading of supplies and parking, and they have chosen not to use it. And that is a discussion that the owner of the dairy needs to have with his landlord. And so I'm just reminding commercial operators they have an opportunity to exercise their own commercial prudence. In regards to the implementation of the restrictions and controls stemming from an LTP decision, I don't apologise at all for asking questions, and I expect staff to be able to answer the questions, and in fact that's what's happened. We have found the appropriately qualified staff member who has answered very clearly and precisely. We have clearly a workaround here that people can choose not to put their number plate in the machine and they'll be fined a maximum of $40. Or alternatively, if otherwise, we could have fined them 57. Staff and council needs to lobby government if you're saying that this is a barrier because of legislation. It doesn't negate the fact that there's a workaround. And I would be important, and I feel staff should have told us that there is clearly that workaround so that we could have an opportunity to have lobbied Wellington to close it. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Chair. So, in regards to the item, the 2 hours free parking down to 1 hour, essentially, I guess this marks the last official act, sort of changing that. And I just want to discuss that because it's been a long journey, you know, changing from the 2 hours free parking, which I was heavily involved with back in 2017-18. And I'm delighted that we are retaining free parking in the central city. I think it has an important place still. And I have felt personally that this council has been a little dismissive of 2 hours free parking this term. At times there's almost been a bit of contempt for it, I've sensed. During the LTP, draft LTP, I lost the vote 2-11, and thank you, Chair, you were on my side then, to keep 2 hours free parking. And I have always been concerned about how well it was actually being policed, and at least with technology now, I can be assured that we'll see it working as well as it possibly can. So I'm really pleased that we're keeping some free parking, and I feel vindicated for that. I understand the financial imperative, and I agree that we do need to recoup some income, and this will allow us to do it. In regards to the all-day parking, I'm supportive of $6 Ward Street and Seddon, and I think there comes a time when you do have to have some element of user pays and some reality given the state of our books. But I point out that this is new for our residents. They've been able to have this luxury of turning up and parking for free in such situations, and I think it's a good idea to actually keep it to a nominal fee for some time until we educate them, until they get used to it. And I am concerned that we've signed up in the LTP, and I take some responsibility for that, to a situation where staff don't necessarily have to come back to us to make a change. And I think if this term has taught us anything, it's that transport decisions need careful consideration. So, sorry, I won't be much longer. And so I sense a reluctance from elected members to sort of change this. I know we've got a staff action, but I have no guarantee that we are actually going to get consulted if staff want to ramp up on-street charges. So I'm forced to vote against it at this stage. And there was a suggestion that somehow it would swamp our Transport Committee to be asked to make a decision on this, but it's only a change you can make every 3 months anyway, so I really don't think that's an issue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Taylor. I don't have anything further to add, so we'll go to the vote. Would you prefer it on the board or show of hands? So we're voting. Yeah. So
Can we just have because we split the motion, right?
yep.
We
Cool.
just took out the last part on page 17, that last Roman numerals 4. So everything prior.
Yeah. All those, sorry. All those in favour.
So, no, sorry, Chair.
Okay.
I need it on the board, please.
Okay.
There is a policy that we can see the motion that we're being asked to vote. That I recall Maxine asking for a multiple.
Three.
Is it item 3? In favour? Raise your hand. Yep.
All in favour?
And Councillor Anna? The tick. Yes.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay.
And then we can pop back up the other one.
That's it? Okay. Councillor Anna put her hand up. Do you have a question, Councillor Anna?
Yeah, sorry. Just in terms of can you just relay what the staff action is associated with this part?
In a nutshell, facilitate a way in which members can reconsider the demand responsive parking and report that back. In particular, it was the all-day parking for Councillor Taylor.
Okay,
My
thank you.
understanding was it's not to relitigate that, it was simply to be limited to litigating how the price escalates. So there's...
How we can enable that reconsideration, that part. That's,
that there is a touch point back to to the elected members just on the price escalation. It wasn't about the whole demand. It was just
because it all depends on how the original resolution was written for how I haven't looked any further into it.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
Okay. We got the vote? Mm-hmm. Right. For the motion, all those in favour, raise their hands.
And dissenting? The motion is carried, noting that councillor Taylor is dissenting. And now late item.
Now, the late item, 6, I believe is the number.
Any questions?
Do we have any questions? No. I think it was pretty straightforward. Moved by councillor Wilson, seconded by councillor Hutt. All those in favour, raise their hands.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, with that in mind, I'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for your attendance today, your line of questioning, and have a great day. Yeah,